So I am doing this video to basically set my parameters for putting calculations into 4Link and also to know just my limits of the current suspension setup. This is basically at full stop. So this is with 21 inches between shock mount to shock mount with a level axle and a level frame. Do you see any issues? And again, this is going to be an electric vehicle. With any clearances. All right, so right now we're at about full stop at 21 inches. Let's let it all the way down on the one side and leave it up on the other side. So that puts us at about 29. So in theory, I could go much lower than that. So let's talk numbers. The lower links are 4 feet, the uppers are 3 feet, so that's 75%. The lowers are at a 8.5 degree angle, while the uppers are at 4.4 degree angle. The overall triangulation should be 40 or over. The question I have is, so the frame, the bottom of the frame sits at 25 inches off the ground with a ride height of 27 inches on, I guess not a ride height, but a shock, with my shock at what they recommend, the coil compressed to 27 inches overall length is what they're suggesting for a ride height, which gives me 6 inches of up travel and tons of down travel, depending on what I put my limit straps at. Getting ready to punch the numbers into the computer. So, I have finally spent the day on this beautiful Super Bowl Sunday breaking down the 4Link calculator and how I think that my suspension will react to the angles and the dimensions that we're currently at. And I have to say that I don't want to say I'm more confused than I've ever been, because I feel like I've learned a lot, but I feel like somebody who has never done this before and is trying to worry about the perfect angles and the perfect dimensions, in the end, I think it's kind of like everything else in life. You're going to have everybody who tells you what's perfect and what exactly is going to work. But at this point in a build, there's so many variables that really nothing, I don't want to say nothing matters. Obviously, all of your, the ability to not hit specific parts of your vehicle with full suspension and tilt and angle and all that, that's very important. But when you're looking at anti-squat and your roll center of gravity and all of that, I'm making up numbers. I'm making up numbers of where I believe that the center line is on the weight distribution. And I'm making up numbers because I'm currently sitting on 31-inch tires, and I'm gonna probably have 37-inch tires. And I'm sure that will equal out, because then I'll also change the areas where the height from the ground of the mounts and things like that will probably equal that out. But in reality, I did something simple, and I'm going to show you on the 2 examples of the calculator here real quick. But when my anti-squat numbers were, I think, in the 60s, and I just did something like adding a 2 3/4 inch block here to raise my mount points on the center arms, 4-link arms. It made my anti-squat numbers go significantly different. And then changing what is my perceived center of gravity to from 36 inches to 32 inches, it made things completely different. And again, I'm doing something that a lot of people are able to take, like I believe they said, using the harmonic balancer as your center point, either the center of it or the upper part of it. Everybody kind of knows that equation because they've done this a lot. Well, with my vehicle, I don't know yet whether I'm using a 24 kilowatt hour battery, which would be a fairly small battery, or if I'm using a 65 kilowatt hour battery, which I'm leaning towards, which I believe that battery alone is 1,000 pounds. Well, depending on the size of that battery, which is going to fit partially into this space, and then I may build it up here, I'm going to have to repackage it, but it also depends on how all of this works out. I may have to move some of the cells up front, so that's going to then throw off the weight balance from the front to the rear. There's the roll cage that has to be factored in and how much that weighs. So I just don't know how anybody could do this at this point without actually having numbers. And because I think that everything can change so much with just one simple thing. So here's my thought. I've got everything tacked in. The clearance seems great. Obviously, I don't have the body on yet, which I'm going to do at some point. I've got to get the shock mounts figured out to where I can actually mount them and be secure. The shocks currently are a little bit close to the tires, but also just simply having a different offset rim when I choose the final rim may completely remedy that. I don't know that yet. But so all of those things are going to change, but I'm really to the point where I can kind of throw the body on to be able to cut out for the shock towers and figure out what my interior spacing is going to be for the battery, put in some additional supports. But I also got to get the car that's going to be the donor battery. So I think that I'm going to move forward with this like it is, because tacked in, okay, let's say I need to move this up 2 inches, which is easy to do. I'm just simply putting I think this is 4 inches wide, a 2x4 across the top here, cut these off, put them up higher. That's going to change things there. Maybe I have to cut down the length of the lower tubes by the lower arms by 6 inches. Okay, then I just cut off those couple spot welds. But I don't think it really makes a lot of sense to run that calculator until you're closer to the end of your build, where you know what your weight distribution is going to be and you know what your overall weight is going to be, because I'm just throwing numbers in from traditional internal combustion engines, and mine is not anything like that. So again, I think there's too many variables at this point to put a lot of weight on that calculator, because everything's going to change. So that's what I'm going to do. Move forward. I like what things are currently set up as, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what examples I was talking about on that 4-link calculator. Here is my current setup. So this is the numbers that I have taken from the current setup, put into the 4-link calculator, and this is what I've come up with. And so this is where I have no idea other than what I've learned in the last few days. So people who do this often or know so much more than I do, feel free to put your opinions down here, because there could be something that I'm just trying to look at the basic metrics, and you could tell me, hey, this isn't going to work, because please tell me that. I would love to know that. But I mean, hell, even if you got an opinion that's wrong, throw it on here, because somebody's going to correct you. The more I read through these opinions, the more I'm going to learn. So what I saw here, rear anti-squat. So at static ride height, I'm looking at 74% anti-squat. So honestly, it seems like a decent number to me. for something that is not going to be just an off-road rig. To be honest with you, it's going to be driven on the road more than anything. I just want some trailability when I get out there and want to take it off-road. But for the most part, this is just a fun, take it to the shows and do some things, show people an electric Jeep. So, but I would love to drive it a lot if it rides well. My goal is to put a sway bar in the rear where I can disconnect it if I wanted to do some more articulation off-road. So that's what I'm going for. So if some of these numbers don't jive with that, let me know what I could change. So again, we won't change a lot about the suspension until I know the actual weights so that we know that these numbers here are actually legit. For example, if I take this and like I was showing earlier and went up 2.75 in the rear, that anti-squat number goes from the 74 up to 92. So that's just by putting a block in the upper triangulated links in the rear on the axle by putting a 2.75 inch block, which I think I can get away with, maybe 2, but I think I can get up to about a 2.5, 2 and 3/4 inch block in the back. So those are the things that I'm just saying, that's easy to fix. I'm not really worried about being able to make changes like that as long as the basics work for me. So the thing that I don't understand a whole lot is here's the rear axis, the rear roll axis inclination. And so basically on a lot of the videos that I saw is you want the body roll, because if you have body roll, you can always fix that with the sway bar. And so it gives you good handling and control on the road. And when you go off-road, all you have to do is unhook that sway bar, and then that gives you the ability to articulate some more. So these are the numbers that I have. Look at them. Tell me what I could do different. That is nothing to do with basically the weight of the vehicle and all of that. And I'll try to make my next video more about the electric portion. And I've been working on sourcing cars from Copart, and I found some really cool information. I think that it'll be helpful for anybody else who's looking to use a Nissan Leaf drivetrain. So this is what I've got, and that's where I'm going. So you let me know what you think so far.